Tonight may have started long before you noticed it. A quiet morning, a small patch of sky through a window, a doorway that briefly opened on the day, a few unremarkable seconds of light somewhere along the way. Most of those moments did not ask to be remembered. They were not loud. They were not striking. They were only there, the way light tends to be ordinary, generous, easy to miss. And yet, very quietly, the body has been keeping them. The eyes have been holding them. Some old, slow part of you has been weaving them, hour by hour, into the shape of this very feeling, this slow heaviness behind the eyelids, this gentle quieting of the room, this small inward turning that comes when a long day finally folds itself away. Because this is the soft secret about sleep, about the kind of sleep that arrives without effort. It almost never begins at night. It begins much earlier, in pieces, in the slow, steady touch of morning light against the eyes. The seed of tonight's rest was planted hours ago, in places you may not even remember. For the next 2 hours, we are going to follow that quiet thread, not to teach, not to instruct, only to notice, very slowly, how the world has already been preparing this hour for you. If the eyes grow heavy along the way, that is not a failure. That is the morning, returning to you. Finally, as rest, there is a clock inside the body. It is not on any wall. It is not visible in any mirror. It is a quiet, biological rhythm that began turning long before any human ever invented an hour or a minute. Researchers call it the circadian clock, but the body has had it, in some form, for hundreds of millions of years, longer than any spoken language, older than any city, older even than the idea of an hour. Tonight, that very old clock is doing what it has always done. It is turning, very slowly, toward rest. This inner clock is not run by willpower or worry. It is set, gently, by light, not the light from a phone, not the light from a lamp, but the larger, broader light of the day itself. Researchers describe it as the body's first language. Each morning, when the eyes meet daylight, that signal is read by old, quiet structures in the brain that ask only one question of the world: is it day or is it night? When the answer arrives, the body sets itself to that answer for the next many hours. The day's first light is the day's first word. The sky has its own version of an alarm. It is not loud. It is not abrupt. It is the slow, steady brightening of the world from blue to gold over the course of an early hour. Long before any human alarm was invented, this was the only one the body needed. It is, in some sense, still the only one the body trusts, even when an alarm clock wakes a person earlier than the sky. The body keeps watch for the real signal, the one that lives outside the window. In the slowly brightening air, the body keeps a quieter, parallel time underneath the day's plans. Above, there is the schedule of human life meetings, meals, transit, errand. Underneath, there is something slower and more ancient, the quiet clock of the body, with its own version of dawn, noon, and evening, each marked not by numbers but by gentle shifts in temperature, hormonal levels, and attention. Both clocks run at the same time. Most lives are spent paying attention to only one of them. Tonight is one of the rare hours when the deeper clock is allowed to speak first. Morning light is the body's most reliable timekeeper. Among all the signals the body could use to set itself food, exercise, stress, conversation, morning light, researchers find, is the most reliable. It is steady. It returns every day. It does not vary based on what kind of week it has been. The body has spent a long evolutionary career learning to lean on it. Whatever else changes in a life, morning light tends to keep showing up. In the same way, in roughly the same shape, every 24 hours, if the day's light fades, the body still finishes its slow turning towards sleep. Even on the cloudiest of days, when no clear sun ever appears, the body still finishes its slow turning towards sleep when night arrives. The inner rhythm has many ways of finding its way home, even when the day did not give it everything it would have liked. The clock inside is patient. It is not easily lost. Whatever shape this day took, the rhythm is benau, already gathering itself toward rest. So perhaps the jaw can soften very slowly, the way a small, warm room softens when a candle is lit and dimmed. The body does not need to be told to sleep. It simply needs to remember it is night. Sleep is not a command the body has to be given. It is, more accurately, an old memory the body returns to, the kind of memory the body never quite loses, even on harder weeks. Even after long stretches of broken sleep, the body knows this hour. The body knows what to do with it. There is nothing for the mind to figure out tonight. There is only the slow, the familiar work of remembering. The eye is more than a window for seeing. It is a doorway for the day to enter the body. Most people, when they think about the eye, picture a tool for seeing. The eye, however, has at least two jobs. One is the obvious one: colors, faces, written words, the world in detail. The other is older and quieter. It is to gather light in a more general way and let the day inform the body of what is happening outside. This second job does not need careful attention to do its work. It happens whenever the eyes are open. Even an unfocused glance at a kitchen window in the morning is, in the body's deeper sense, a small act of communication with the day. There are very old cells deep in the eye whose only job is to listen for daylight. Researchers studying the inner workings of the eye have, in recent decades, described a small population of cells whose work has nothing to do with images at all. Their task is simply to notice general brightness in the environment and pass that information along to the body's inner clock. They do not see anything in the way the rest of the eye sees. They only listen for the day. They have probably been doing this for as long as eyes have existed. These cells do not care about colors or shapes. They only care about the brightness of the day. To these listening cells, a face is not a face. A book is not a book. A sunset is not a sunset. There is only one question they pay attention to: how bright is the world? On average, around me, in this way, they are blind in the ordinary sense and yet very awake in another. They are tuned, very carefully, to the slow rise and fall of daylight across an entire day, the way an old gardener might be tuned to the changing of the seasons. When those cells meet the morning, they pass on a quiet message. It is day. The message they send is short. It does not contain a sentence. It does not contain instructions. It contains, in its own old language, only the smallest possible piece of information. It is day. That single message is enough. The body reorganizes around it. Hormones rise. Temperature shifts. The schedule of countless slow rhythms aligns itself to the new piece of news each morning. This very small message resets a very large house. Whenever you're ready, perhaps the shoulders can sink very gently, the way blossoms close again at the end of a long, sun-warmed afternoon. When night returns, the same cells go quiet, and the body's softer half begins. By evening, those same cells have less to say. The light is dimmer. The world has folded toward dark. They quiet down, and as they do, the softer half of the body's day begins. Hormones that prefer the dark begin to rise. Body temperature begins, very gently, to fall. Attention loosens. The pace of thought slows. None of this is felt directly. It happens beneath all the small noticings of an ordinary evening. But by the time you find yourself in bed, the softer half is well along. Light at the eye is not visible to the mind, yet the body listens carefully to it. One of the strangest things to know about this whole system is how silent it is from the inside. The mind never receives a clear notification. The body never makes a sound. There is no felt moment of the inner clock has been set today. It happens entirely below awareness. The conversation between the eyes and the body's deeper self is constant, but it is whispered. The body has been making decisions on your behalf for a long time, and most of them you have never had to think about. Light that begins in the eye ends. Eventually, as quiet hormonal weather inside the body, the morning light reaching the eye does not stay in the eye. It is translated. It becomes, hours later, hormonal weather inside the body, the gentle rise and fall of melatonin, the patient cycle of cortisol, the warming and cooling of the body across the day. By evening, the morning is no longer something to be remembered. It is something the body is wearing, like a soft inner climate. The night is, in many ways, the slow consequence of the day's first light. Morning light is the day's gentle hand on the body's shoulder. There is a way of describing morning light that has nothing to do with science and yet sits very close to its findings. It is, in many lives, the day's gentle hand on the body's shoulder, a soft, steady presence that says, without words, "You are awake now. We will go through this day together." Whether or not anyone notices it, that hand has been there. It has been there for years. It has been there, in some form, every day of your life. Tonight, the hand has been quietly removed for many hours. The day has let go of you completely. The same light that wakes is also, several hours later, the light that helps the body find its way to sleep. There is a small paradox at the heart of all of this. The light that wakes the body in the morning is also, indirectly, the light that helps it sleep at night. Researchers have noticed this for many years. People who get more light early in the day tend, on average, to fall asleep a little more easily later. The day's first signal is, in some quiet sense, also the night's last preparation. So perhaps the forehead can be allowed to soften, slow as a curtain settling at evening. The brighter the morning, the gentler, on average, the night. Across many studies, this same pattern keeps appearing. Brighter mornings tend to be followed, in the same person, by gentler nights. Not always, not perfectly, but on average, and across many lives, the body seems to take in the day's brightness and use it as a kind of gentle weight, a small, helpful weight that, by evening, makes the slope downward towards sleep a little less steep. None of this is something to chase. It is only something to notice has already been at work in your life. Morning light, in this way, does not only signal day, it begins the night. It is strange and quietly comforting to think that the body's preparation for sleep often begins at sunrise. Not at dinner, not at bedtime, not when the lights in the house are turned down. At sunrise, by the time night arrives, the body has been preparing for it for many quiet hours. Sleep is not made in the last few minutes of a day. It is made slowly, all day long. Attention also follows the inner clock, soft as the tide along a coastline. Inside the body, attention is not flat. It rises and falls in long, slow waves throughout the day, very much like a tide along a coastline. Mid-morning tends to be a high tide for many people. Mid-afternoon, a quiet, low, late evening, a slow withdrawal. None of this is failure. It is the body's old, ordinary rhythm. Whatever your attention has done today, whatever it has held, whatever it has let slip, it has been following this slow kintu. Tonight, the tide is finally going out. Mid-afternoon is not lazy. It is the body's old slow chapter. The mid-afternoon dip in energy that many people feel is sometimes treated as a problem. Researchers studying inner rhythms tend to describe it differently. It is a quiet chapter of the body's day, one that has appeared in nearly every culture across human history. People in many older societies built rest into that hour without apology. The body did not invent the modern workday. The modern workday was placed on top of the body. The slow afternoon is not a flaw. It is an old, ordinary part of the body's day, kept somewhere very deep. Late evening is the body's quiet retreat into smaller rooms. By late evening, the body has begun a kind of quiet retreat. Attention narrows. The world feels smaller. The day's broader concerns shrink toward nearer ones. The room you are in. The bed you are near. The soft, slow movements of the breath. None of this requires anything from you. It is the body's old, faithful work, finishing itself off for the night. There is no resisting it. There is only allowing it. The mind's slow turning at night is not a failure. It is the body keeping its old promise. So if there has ever been a part of you that has felt as though something is wrong because the mind grows slower in the evening, nothing is wrong. This is the body keeping a very old promise. It is keeping it tonight, too. So perhaps the hands can rest, soft as the slow opening of dawn over an ordinary garden. Morning light reaches the eyes that are open just enough to receive it. One of the most quietly forgiving things about morning light is how little it asks. It does not require anyone to look at the sun. It does not require any specific posture, or any pose, or any ceremony. It only asks that the eyes be open while a little daylight is around. Whatever you did this morning, quietly, ordinarily, perhaps barely awake, was almost certainly enough. The body needs very little in this regard and is very easily met halfway. A glance at a window in the morning may already be enough to set the day. There are studies suggesting that even a short, indirect exposure to morning daylight is enough for the body's inner clock to be informed. Not staring, not standing in direct sun, just being near a window, glancing toward the brighter half of the room, walking past a glass door on the way to the kitchen. Whatever that looked like in your life today, it was probably enough. The body does not require attention. It requires only access, briefly, to the day. The body trusts daylight more than it trusts any indoor lamp. Indoor lamps, even bright ones, are typically much dimmer than the outside on a cloudy day. The inner clock notices this difference. It tends to read indoor light as a lighter, softer signal, not a clear announcement of day. Outside light, even on grey days, is in another category entirely. The body, when given a choice between indoor and outdoor brightness, tends to lean toward the outside as its more trusted source. None of this is information you need to act on. It is only a quiet hint about what kinds of light the body has been most patient with for a very long time. Daylight, outside, is much brighter than the body usually realizes from inside. It is one of the small, quiet surprises of working with light measurements. Even an overcast day, viewed from inside, can feel rather grey. The same overcast day, measured outside, can be many times brighter than the inside of a well-lit office. The body does not feel this difference dramatically. The eyes adapt, but the inner clock, working in its quieter way, registers it. Even if no one ever notices, the world outside has been brighter today than it likely felt. Light at the eye becomes, over the course of a day, the slow background music of the body. Researchers describe what light does to the body in many different ways. One soft way of imagining it is as the slow background music of a room. Most people, even when listening to music, are not aware of every note. They are only aware of the mood the music is creating around them. Light works the same way, only over hours and days. It does not announce itself. It only sets the mood the body lives inside. Tonight, that music has gone quiet. The room is allowed to be exactly as still as it is spontaneous. The body has been quietly tuned by the day's brightness. Hour by hour, by evening, the body is, in a soft sense, quietly tuned to the brightness it received, tuned to the rhythm of the light it met, tuned to the long, slow pattern of the day. None of this is anything you have to track. The body has done it. The body always does it. And the night, when it arrives, settles into that already tuned shape. Tonight is one of those settling nights. Whatever brightness met you today has been heard. Whatever amount of daylight reached you today is, very softly, with you now. It is not necessary that the day was bright. It is not necessary that the morning was long. Whatever portion of daylight reached you today, in whatever form it took, is with you now. It is part of the slow heaviness in the eyelids. It is part of the soft, low warmth somewhere in the chest. It is part of the quiet that has gathered in the room. The day has folded itself into this hour and is resting alongside you. So perhaps the hands can grow quietly heavy, soft as petals folded inward at the end of a sunny afternoon. In one study, a small group of students received a few mornings of brighter than usual light, and their nights changed quietly. There is a small, gentle study to keep in mind. A small group of university students were given a few mornings over the course of a week, with brighter than usual light at the start of their days, not anything extreme, only a steady, kind brightness. The researchers were not trying to wake them up. They were trying, very carefully, to see what would happen at the other end of the day. Several quiet things did. The next few facts will follow what they noticed. For 5 days, the only thing that changed was the brightness of those students' mornings. Nothing else about their lives changed. They went to the same classes. They ate the same things. They sent the same messages. They saw the same friends. The only adjustment for those 5 days was a slightly brighter start to each morning. None of them tried to sleep better. None of them tried to feel different. The morning was the only intervention. The body did the rest. When the researchers measured what happened, they used a phrase that sounds quite small: sleep efficiency. It is the fraction of the night that is actually spent in sleep, rather than lying still and waiting for it. Before the bright mornings, the students' sleep efficiency was around 80%. After 5 days, it had risen to nearly 84%. That difference looks tiny written down. From the inside, though, it can feel like a night that holds together a little better. A night that does not leave so many small, empty rooms between sleep and almost sleep. A few percent of a night is, in real time, several quiet minutes that might otherwise have been spent waking. Tonight, perhaps even a few quiet minutes have already been gifted to you. Very softly, by a morning you barely remember. Another quiet finding from that same study was about how long it took the students to fall asleep. After the bright mornings, that interval shortened. The students were not trying harder. They were not following any new evening rules. They were simply going to bed and finding the doorway a little nearer than it used to be. This is one of the gentlest things morning light seems to do. It does not push sleep from outside. It only allows the body, by the time night arrives, to be a little closer to it already. Sleep does not have to be reached for. It has been waiting a few steps further in. Tonight, sleep is not somewhere far. It is, very likely, only a few quiet breaths from where you are. A third measure in that small study was something the researchers called fragmentation, a way of counting how many tiny moments of waking are scattered through a night. Most nights have several o'clock. Most people never know about them. They are too small to remember. After 5 mornings of brighter light, the students' fragmentation index dropped. Their nights, in other words, became a little more like one long piece of cloth, instead of many smaller pieces stitched together. None of this changed the kind of person they were. It only smoothed the cloth a little. Tonight's cloth is also, in its own way, being smoothed. Whatever last night looked like, tonight is permitted to be one quiet, slow piece. Perhaps the chest can rise and fall slowly. Breath like the slow turn of the earth. One more thing the researchers noticed. Those students also reported feeling less heavy when they woke up. The mornings after their 5 bright mornings tended to feel a touch easier, not energetic, not transformed, just a small lifting of that thick weight that sometimes presses on the first hour of the day. None of this is a promise. None of it is a guarantee. It is only a quiet hint that what the eyes meet at the start of a day can follow them all the way back. The next morning, as a slightly gentler waking, the body keeps these small kindnesses even when the mind does not notice. Whenever the next morning arrives, you do not have to carry it. It will lift itself in its own quiet way. Most people think of a window as something to look out of. The body thinks of it differently. To the body, a window is a slow, quiet faucet of light, leaking the day into the room hour after hour. Long after the morning has officially passed, a window is still letting in a great deal more brightness than any lamp. This is part of why a sunlit kitchen, a half-bright study, a curtain pulled to the side somewhere in the back of the house. They all feel so different from a fully shaded room, not because of the view, but because of what is being delivered, very slowly, all day, to the eyes. Tonight, the windows in your home are dark. The faucet has been turned very quietly off. Researchers in one study compared two groups of office workers, one group whose desks were near windows, and another group whose desks were in rooms without any. The two groups were similar in age, in work, in routine. The only difference was the light that reached them while they sat at their tasks. Across several measures of sleep, the workers near windows tended to come out a little ahead. Their sleep was, on average, a little longer, a little less broken, a little more refreshing. The light they spent their days in had quietly followed them home, into the evenings and into the nights. Whatever windows held you today, they have already begun to hold this hour. 2. What seems to happen in a study like that one is that light is not held in any single moment. It accumulates. The light that touches the eyes at a desk in mid-morning, the light that gathers around a coffee cup at noon, the light that brightens a page in early afternoon, all of it is added together by the body. By the end of the day, the inner clock has had a long, soft conversation with brightness. The bed, when it arrives, simply inherits the result. None of this is dramatic. None of it is ever noticed in the moment. It is a slow seeping, the way warm air seeps under a door. Tonight, the light from your day has already seeped into this hour, the way warmth seeps into a held cup. In that same study, the researchers also measured something they called well-being, a softer, broader sense of how people were doing in their lives. They used a simple questionnaire, and on its scores, the workers near windows again came out a touch ahead. They reported feeling, in small ways, more steady, more at ease, more in tune with their days. None of this means a window is a cure for anything. It only means that, on average, the side of a room with sky tends to be the side of a room where people feel a little more themselves. Tonight, you carry a quiet portion of all the sky you met today, even from inside this dark, gentle room. In ordinary life, mornings can be quiet and crowded and uncertain. There is rarely time for ceremonies. But the body does not need a ceremony. It needs only a curtain pulled a little to one side, a few seconds, a small slice of sky. Researchers who have studied very brief light exposures find that even 5 minutes of real morning light can be enough for the inner clock to read. The body is forgiving. It does not require anyone to wake up earlier or stand by a window. or change anything else. A small opened curtain is breeding. In itself, a small kindness offered to the night that follows. Whatever curtain you open today, in this hour, has already returned to you as a softer thread of rest. On days when going outside is not possible, a long day at a desk, a long day at a bedside, a long day inside one's own thoughts, the body still has small ways of meeting the day. A window left fully uncovered is one of them. The space near a bright wall, near a glass door, near any seam where outside light is allowed in, is a small piece of outdoors held inside. The body listens to it as if it were the day itself. Many indoor days, seen from the inside, are gentler than they look from a distance. A single bright corner is often enough. Whatever quiet corner held you today, it is, very softly, holding you still. You might let the belly soften, the way a garden softens in the first hour of light. There is something quietly comforting about how rooms are shaped. Most rooms are built around their windows. The walls were placed to hold them. The furniture was arranged with light in mind, even if no one was thinking about light at the time. The body, too, has been built around an old expectation of brightness. It is not surprising that the two often feel like a single thing, a room, and the person inside it, both quietly designed for daylight. Tonight, the same architecture is holding you. Even with the windows dark, you are inside a small held space, made for light and for rest. Both have been here all along. In one well-known study, researchers asked a small group of people to leave their ordinary world for a week and live in tents under only natural light. No screens, no lamps, no streetlights, only the sun by day and a small fire and the stars by night. By the end of the week, the timing of their inner clocks had shifted. They were going to sleep earlier, waking earlier, and their body's chemistry had changed in ways that mirrored an older kind of day. Without anyone trying, the inner clock had simply leaned back toward the world it had always known. Tonight, even inside this room, some part of you still remembers that older world. It is, very quietly, still inside. What surprised the researchers most was how clean the effect was. After only 7 days, the participants' bodies had adjusted by roughly 2 hours. The hormone the body uses to mark the edges of night was rising sooner in the evening and falling sooner in the morning. They were not asked to follow any rules about when to sleep. They simply followed the light and the dark of the world around them. And the body did the rest. 2 hours. In a single week. With no effort at all. Simply because the days and nights had been allowed to look like themselves again. Whatever drift this season has held, the body still remembers how to come home. Among the people in that study were several who, in their ordinary lives, considered themselves very late chronotypes, the kind of people whose evenings stretch on, whose mornings come hard. By the end of the week of natural light, even those late types had moved closer to early ones. Their bodies had responded the same way. The shift was quiet and respectful, not transformative. They were still themselves, still inclined toward the later side. But the gap between them and the early risers had narrowed. Whatever inner direction your own body leans, it has always had this quiet flexibility, somewhere in its bones. Whatever hour you tend toward, your body has not forgotten how to soften toward another. In a follow-up study, the researchers wondered how much of that effect could happen in only a weekend. They sent people out for 2 days under natural light, then measured the shift in their inner clocks. The result was striking in its quietness. About 2/3 of the change that had happened over a full week appeared in just 2 days. The body, given even a short window of older light, leaned toward it quickly. None of that is a recommendation to camp this weekend. It is only the softest reminder that the body is more responsive than it usually lets on. A little is often a great deal. Tonight, you do not need a forest. The day's quiet light, even seen from a window, has already done some of that work. One of the gentle conclusions of those camping studies is that the body's memory of natural rhythms is closer than it seems. It is not lost. It is not buried beyond reach. It is only resting just under the surface of modern days, waiting for a familiar signal. 2 mornings under wider light tend to be enough for the body to begin to remember. Whatever has drifted in your life in recent weeks, the next quiet morning is already a partner in its return. There is nothing to repair from this hour. There is only a small, ongoing remembering happening inside you, quite without your help. Tonight, the remembering is allowed to keep going, slowly, while you let everything else drift. If you have ever spent a few nights at the edge of a lake, or in a small cabin, or on a quiet road far from any town, you may already know this from the inside. Many people who travel in those ways describe sleeping a little more deeply, waking a little earlier, feeling a little more in step with the day. Researchers who study these patterns suggest that almost all of that is light. The way mornings open completely without curtains, the way evenings close fully without overhead bulbs. It is not magic. It is only the world doing what it has always done, with fewer interruptions. Tonight, even inside walls, your body still knows how to listen to that older shape of day. Maybe the feet feel gently heavier, like roots holding the ground at sunrise. If the body sometimes feels out of step with the day, researchers point gently at what has changed. The night, in the modern world, is much brighter than it once was. The morning, by comparison spent indoors, behind walls, near soft lamps, is often much dimmer than the body expects. The result is a kind of flattened day. The bright signals are smaller, the dim signals are larger, the inner clock has less to work with. None of this is a failure of the body. It is only a quiet mismatch between an old listener and a newer world. Whatever mismatch this day held, the next one is allowed, very softly, to be different. One of the kindest things this research has to offer is a quiet reframing. If your nights have stretched later, if your mornings feel harder than they used to, the answer is not necessarily inside you. It may be that the lights of the world have been drifting around you for years, dimming where they used to be, bright and brightening where they used to be dim. The body has adapted to that drift, the way a kind person adapts to a noisy room. Whatever you have been carrying, you have not been carrying it because something is wrong with you. Tonight, you are allowed to set down the idea that any of this was your fault. Researchers who track the body's inner rhythms sometimes describe a quiet event called biological dawn. It happens inside the body each day, even in the absence of any outside light. It is a soft transition, the moment when the body begins to lean from night toward day, when temperature begins to rise, when many of the body's slow rhythms begin their morning work. It is, in a way, a private sunrise, lit not by the sky, but by the body's long memory of what mornings have looked like. It happens on time. It happens on schedule. It happens, mostly, without anyone knowing. Tonight, the body's quieter half is in charge, and the private dawn is still many hours away. On the other side of the day, the body has another quiet event, a kind of biological dusk. It is the moment when the inner rhythms begin to fold the day inward. Temperature begins to fall. Melatonin begins to rise. The body, very slowly, begins to step out of the open spaces of waking and into the smaller, kinder rooms of rest. This event tends to happen well before sleep itself arrives. By the time you find yourself yawning at the end of a day, the inner dusk has already been at work for hours. Tonight, that quieter dusk has already passed through you. You are well into its softer rooms now. Researchers describing these inner thresholds often talk about them like doors. There is a morning door, where the body steps from sleep into waking, and there is an evening door, where the body steps from waking into rest. Neither door is sudden. Both are slow, soft, almost ceremonial when seen from inside. They open and close every day. Regardless of what the day holds outside, they have been opening and closing for as long as you have been alive. They will open and close in their quiet way. Again, tomorrow. Right now, you are inside the doorway. The frame is kind. The hinges are soft. When researchers measure many of the body's gentle rhythms together, temperature, hormones, the timing of dream sleep, the rising and falling of certain proteins, they find that several of them quietly meet at these morning and evening doors. The doors are not single events. They are, more accurately, gentle crossings, where many slow streams flow in and out of one another. None of this needs to be felt to be happening. The body does not announce its crossings. They are simply being made. Right now, beneath thought, tonight, all those slow streams are flowing the same way, into the same dark, kind sea. If a person could somehow watch their own biological dawn from the inside, they might be surprised at how quiet it is. There is no bell. There is no clear moment of arrival. There is only a slow, almost imperceptible shift, the way a held breath softens at the very last edge of being held. The same is true of biological dusk. Neither event is a doorway, slammed open or shut. Both are more like the long, easy unspooling of a thread. The body has learned, over many lifetimes, that the gentlest changes are almost always the deepest. Whatever soft thread is unspooling in you tonight, there is no need to follow where it goes. If it feels right, let the eyelids grow softly heavier. The way petals close again at evening. Of the two doors, dusk often feels more like a return than a leaving. The body knows this place. It has been here every night of its life. The slow temperature drop, the quiet rise of melatonin, the soft loosening of attention, the shadow of sleepiness behind the eyes, all of these are old, familiar guests, walking back into a room they have always lived in. There is no rush. There is no ceremony. There is only the long, familiar way the body has of returning to itself. One warm, ordinary night at a time. Tonight, You are not going somewhere new. You are only coming home. Slow as warm water, finding its old shape. One of the kindest things about the body's inner rhythms is how steady they are. Even on a day spent entirely indoors, a long work day, a longue convalescence, a quiet weekend at home, the inner doors of biological dawn and dusk still open and close on time. The body does not need a perfect day to keep the rhythm. It only needs the day to pass. Whatever shape your day took, the inner mornings and inner evenings still arrived, still softened the corners, still quietly prepared this hour. The body is far more faithful than most of us know. Tonight, the body's old promises are being kept as they always are, without needing any thanks. When light reaches the eyes, it does not stay there. It does not even stay in the visual centers of the brain. Researchers studying these soft pathways describe something more like a record, a quiet ledger somewhere inside the body, where the brightness of each hour is added, very slowly, to a running sum. The ledger does not pass judgment. It does not say a day was good or bad. It only counts gently, hour by hour, what the eyes have seen. By the time the day is done, that ledger is closed, and the night begins to read it. Tonight, the night is reading what the day quietly wrote, and finding nothing it cannot work with. The marks the body keeps from a day are not loud. They are not exact. They are something more like a slow, blurred average of brightness, layered hour after hour. A bright morning counts more than a bright noon. A bright noon counts more than a bright afternoon. By the time evening arrives, the body has a soft sense of how the day has gone, and the night settles into shape around that sense. The light at the start of a day, in this way, has a quiet weight that the rest of the day cannot quite reach. Whatever brightness this day carried, its weight is already inside this hour, soft and unobtrusive. Researchers studying the inner clock have noticed, somewhat to their surprise, how short an exposure to morning light can be and still leave a trace. As little as 5 minutes near a window or near a door opening into the day can be picked up by the body. The body does not need a long ceremony with the sun. It needs only a small, honest meeting. 5 minutes is, in many lives, the time it takes to make tea, or pull on a sweater, or wait for someone else to be ready. Even that smaller meeting tends to be enough to be remembered. Tonight, those small 5-minute moments, wherever they were, are still inside you, very softly, kept. One image researchers sometimes use is that of a river. A river does not measure each raindrop. It only collects them, drops from a sudden shower, drops from a long drizzle, drops from a faint mist, barely noticed. All of them flow into the same gentle current. The body is, in this sense, very much a river for light. It does not separate one source from another. It only adds the brightness of a window, the brightness of a kitchen, the brightness of a few minutes outdoors. All of them pour into the same steady stream that empties, eventually, into rest. Tonight, that river is wide and quiet, no longer gathering, only flowing on. In one large review of light and sleep, researchers noticed a soft pattern each additional hour spent outside, on average, was associated with sleep arriving roughly half an hour earlier in the evening. The numbers, as always, as small. The pattern is not a rule. It is only a quiet trend, observed across many lives. But it suggests something the body seems to already know, that the more daylight a day holds, the gentler the doorway of sleep at its end. Tonight, you do not need any more hours. You need only this one. So perhaps you can let the work of gathering be finished now. The day's hours have already added themselves up. Perhaps the fingers can uncurl, slow, as leaves opening to the day. One of the kindest things about the body's quiet ledger is what it does not ask for. It does not ask for a perfect day. It does not ask for a particular kind of light. It does not ask for any specific hour. It only asks, very softly. For some, whatever brightness reached the eyes today, in any form, at any time, in any amount, has already been added in. The body has never, in all its long history, demanded that anyone do this right. It only watches and counts and prepares the night. Whatever the day looked like, the night you are entering has already been built around it. And it is enough. On many nights, people lie down feeling that they did not earn rest, that the day was not productive enough, or bright enough, or kind enough. The body does not share that opinion. It does not require any of those things. It accepts whatever the day gave it. A small amount of light, a larger amount, a grey, cloudy stretch, a long indoor span. The night takes the day's offering exactly as it is and shapes itself quietly around it. There is no rest that has to be earned, and no day that has not, in some small way, prepared one. Tonight, the offering has been received. Nothing else has to be done. When researchers describe what daylight does inside the body, they usually begin with the inner clock. But light is rarely doing only one thing. It is also at work, very quietly, in the places people sometimes call mood, feeling, weather of the heart. The day, on average, tends to be a little kinder when morning has been bright. Words come more easily. Other people feel, somehow, a little nearer. None of this is loud. None of it asks to be measured. It is just there, low and steady. The way a faint hum is there in a quiet room. Tonight, that quiet hum is finishing its day, and you are allowed simply to listen. Across many studies, daylight and inner weather tend to walk together. Days with more light, on average, are days when people feel a little more themselves. Days with less, on average, are days when the inner weather seems closer to grey. None of this is a one-to-one rule. Plenty of bright days hold sorrow. Plenty of grey ones hold ease. But, looking across many lives, the pattern is gentle and unmistakable. Light and inner weather travel the same long road, often within sight of each other, even when one is well ahead of the other. Whatever inner weather you are carrying tonight, you do not have to walk it alone. The light, in some form, is still nearby. On the days that come heavier, when even small things feel like a long climb, the body sometimes responds to very small signals of light. A single bright corner of a room, a tea kettle catching the morning, a wall that turns gold for a few minutes in late afternoon. None of these are answers. None of them lift any of the weight that visits some lives in some seasons. They are only small anchors, holding a piece of the day in a way the body can recognize. Even a single bright square of floor can be, for a few minutes, a small kindness offered without speaking. Tonight, the anchors are not needed. The boat, for now, is allowed simply to drift. The kind of weight that arrives some nights without asking is, sometimes, gentler in the days after a string of brighter mornings. Researchers describe this in their own cautious language. They do not promise anything. They do not offer cures. They only note, gently, that on average, more morning light tends to keep the inner weather a little more even, a little more level. Whatever your nights have looked like recently, the next morning is not, in itself, a treatment for anything. It is only a familiar friend, returning. Tonight, you do not need to be lifted. You are allowed to be exactly as heavy or light as you are. One of the quiet observations across many studies of light is that its effects do not seem to depend on the words a person has for them. People who never heard of inner rhythms respond the same way as those who have studied them all their lives. The body answers light without language. It does not need a concept, it only needs the signal. This is part of why it can feel, sometimes, that a bright morning has changed something inside, without ever quite explaining what. Light reaches the inner rooms of the body where words rarely go. Tonight, you do not need any words for this hour either. The body knows the rest of the way. You might gently let the space between the brows widen. As a sky widens after dawn, researchers who study mood and light have noticed something small but persistent. On days when the body is met by gentle morning brightness, it tends to be a little kinder to itself by evening. Self-criticism softens. Sleep arrives more willingly. The voice in the back of the mind, the one that sometimes lists the day's failures before bed, often goes a little quieter. None of this is guaranteed. None of it is permanent. It is only an old, soft pattern that the body knows better than the mind. Tonight, perhaps that voice can rest as well. Whatever it has to say, it is allowed to say it tomorrow, if at all. One of the most quietly comforting things about morning light is that it does not need to be chased. It always returns. Every single dawn that has ever happened on this planet has happened on its own. The sun has never been late. The world has never failed to turn. Whatever tonight holds, whatever tomorrow asks, light is on its way back, not because anyone called, but because that is, very simply, what it does. The body has been counting on this for a very long time, and the body has yet to be disappointed. So tonight, you are allowed to rest fully here. The light is taking care of returning, on its own, long before any human ever spoke a sentence. Eyes were meeting morning light. The first creatures that ever opened any kind of eye were responding to the sun. Every generation since then has done the same. By the time language arrived, that meeting was already older than anyone could measure. The eyes you have tonight are part of that very long line. They have been doing this particular work, meeting the sun for far longer than they have been doing anything else. Tonight, those very old eyes are allowed, simply, to rest. The sun is around 93 million miles away. Light, traveling fast as it does, takes about 8 minutes to cross that distance. This means that every single photon arriving at your window in the morning left the surface of a star 8 minutes earlier. The bright square on the kitchen floor at breakfast is not, technically, present-day light. It is 8-minute-old starlight, gently arriving. None of this needs to be remembered. It is only a small, slow fact about how every morning meets everybody from a great distance. Very softly, right on time. Tonight, those 8 minutes are folded away. The star is on the other side of the world, beginning a different day. When morning light reaches the eye, it has crossed an unimaginable distance. Yet by the time it arrives, it is gentle, it is warm, it is willing to be filtered through curtains and softened by clouds. Of all the strange and powerful things in the universe, sunlight at a window is one of the most considerate. It has come a very long way and asks for almost nothing. It does not make demands. It does not require ceremony. It only enters and fills the room and waits to be noticed or not noticed. As the body chooses, tonight, that long, considerate journey has ended for today. The light is resting too. If a person were to imagine the longest companionship in their life, the answer might surprise them. It is not a friend, or a partner, or even a parent. It is the sun. The sun was there before the first breath, and has been there for every breath since. It will be there for the last one, in some form, likely without being noticed. Of all the things that have come and gone in a single life, light has been one of the few constants, a kind, unspoken companion, present at every door the body has ever crossed. Tonight, that companion is on the other side of the planet, still keeping watch. Sometimes, when the world feels strange, it can help to remember that morning is not an event. It is a meeting. The sun, ancient and steady. The eyes, ancient too in their own way. The two of them finding each other once more. After a long turning of the planet, there is something deeply ordinary about this. There is also something quietly marvelous about it. Every dawn is, in some small way, two old friends saying hello again. Neither of them is in a hurry. Neither of them ever forgets. Tonight, those two friends are apart, and that apartness is part of the rest you are inside. Whenever you're ready, allow the legs to feel long and unhurried, like rivers catching morning gold. On the kind of days that ask a lot, the long ones, the heavy ones, the ones that go on for many hours past, where they were supposed to end morning light, has pound, in many lives, been a small companion, not a fix, not a friend with answers, just a quiet presence, warming a counter, lighting a stairwell, brightening the corner where a cup of something warm is waiting. Whatever a day holds, the morning has, very often, been there too, and that presence, while small, is real. The body has been keeping track. Tonight, even when this day was hard, the morning was with you for at least a few small moments. As you lie here, the sun is not gone. It is only elsewhere, somewhere across the world. The same star is rising for someone you will never meet, beginning their day in the same way it has begun yours. Every day of your life, their inner clock is nudging earlier. Their windows are filling with gold. The same light, the same 8 minutes of travel, The same soft hand at the sill, only at a different address. The sun is keeping its appointment. It is keeping it everywhere. In turn, tonight, you are part of the half of the world that is allowed to rest. That is enough. Out in the garden, if there is a garden, in your life or in your memory leaves, spend each morning quietly drinking light. They never ask for more than is given. Bright days. They are bright. Cloudy days. They manage too. They do not hold grudges against the weather. They do not weigh the morning against what they hoped for. They only do what leaves do. Very slowly, very steadily turn the light into the small green work of being alive. The body, in many ways, has been quietly doing the same. Tonight, the leaves are folded into themselves, and so are you. In the early hours, the world keeps small evidence of the night. Dew gathers on grass blades, on car windows, on the edges of leaves. It is, in a quiet sense, the night's last letter. Then morning arrives. The light grows warmer. The dew lifts, slowly, without complaint. By mid-morning, no one would guess it had ever been there. There is no sadness in this forgetting. There is only the easy, ordinary work of a day doing what days do. The body, too, releases its nights this way slowly. Completely, without grudge. Tonight, last night's dew is long gone. Tomorrow's is being prepared. Somewhere quiet, in the dark. Anyone who has spent time in a garden knows that it does not wake all at once. Each plant has its own slow ceremony. Some open early, some wait until mid-morning, some never quite open at all, content to sleep through the day. The garden is entirely patient with this. It does not ask the slow ones to hurry. It does not envy the early ones their light. It only lets each part of itself wake at its own quiet pace. The body has been allowed, in many lives, the same kind of patience. Tonight, no part of you has to wake. The garden of your body is allowed to be entirely closed. If you have ever woken in the very early hours, you may have noticed something quiet outside the window. Long before the sun appears, birds begin to sing. They are not announcing the morning, they are rehearsing for it. Their inner clocks have been wound, like everyone else's. By the steady turning of the sky, they sing into the dark, knowing the light will come, knowing, without ever needing to know. None of this needs to be listened to. It is happening anyway, in many small places, just beyond the dark of every quiet town. Tonight, you do not need to rehearse anything. You are allowed to listen, very faintly, from inside this rest. Anyone who has watched a slow sunrise knows the order in which a morning arrives. The very first light, before the sun is up, only tints the sky. The smaller things, leaves, walls, doorways, faces stay dark a little longer, gathering in the bluer half of the morning. Slowly, then, the warmth comes, edges appear. Ordinary objects find themselves again. The light has plenty of patience for this. It does not light everything at once. It moves quietly from the largest things to the smallest, as if it were giving each its turn. Tonight, nothing in you has to be lit yet. The smaller things are allowed to stay quiet a while longer. Maybe the arms grow gently heavy, soft as branches, lowering after a long day. You do not need a meadow to know morning. Cities have their own quiet sunrise. Buildings catch the first light along their top edges. Windows on upper floors fill with gold long before the streets. Every living room has its own version. 2. A small bright square moving across a wall. A slow brightening of a curtain. An old corner of a desk catching the very first minute of warmth. Researchers may study morning light in fields and forests, but the body has been meeting it just as well. On desks and tables and shelves all over the world. Tonight, the small bright squares of your home are gone. The corners are quiet, and they are kind. If a person were to add up all the sunrises they have been alive for, the number would be larger than they could imagine. Some they remember, most they do not. Sunrises through bedroom curtains in childhood. Sunrises seen from the window of a bus. Sunrises that happened while they were already busy with the small work of a day. Each one was, in its own way, a small greeting between the body and the world. Most went unnoticed. All of them counted. Tonight, those quiet greetings are still there. Somewhere in the body's long memory, whatever you remember, and whatever you do not, the body has kept the count, and it is generous. One last gentle observation about morning light. It does not need anyone to be watching. It comes for the quiet rooms of empty houses, just as it comes for the busy rooms of full ones. It comes for the people who notice, and the people who do not. It does not measure its kindness by attention. The same is true of the body's response. Whether or not anyone notices the light, the inner clock is being set. Whether or not anyone thanks the morning, the night is being prepared. Tonight is one of the nights that morning helped to build. So tonight, you are allowed to receive a kindness you never had to ask for, and never had to earn. Not everybody is shaped for early mornings. Some bodies are simply built for slower starts, longer evenings, later nights. Researchers describe these patterns as chronotypes, a way of saying that bodies are not all on the same schedule. Some types lean toward dawn, others lean toward dusk. There is no correct type. There is no better one. There is only the kind of body a person happens to have. The same way a person has a particular voice or a particular handwriting. Slow mornings, in many lives, are not a flaw. They are a feature. Whatever shape your body has tonight, it is allowed, very simply, to be itself. If you have ever been the last person awake in a quiet house, the one whose light is on long after others have gone to bed, you may have wondered, occasionally, whether you were doing something wrong. Researchers studying chronotypes offer a quiet answer: no, not really. Late types are part of the ordinary range of human bodies. The slow drift toward later hours is not a personal failing. It is, in many cases, a small biological tilt that the world simply has not always made room for. The night owl is not a problem. The world has only been a little hard on them. Tonight, you do not have to apologize for any hour your body has ever preferred. One of the kindnesses of light research is that it suggests something very gentle. A late body and a soft morning can still be friends. The late body does not need to become an early one. It does not need to wake at dawn. It only needs, en occasion, a small, honest meeting with daylight, a window, a few minutes outside, a curtain pulled to the side, even a late start. met with a little light, gives the body what it needs to keep its rhythms steady. There is no need to fight the body's preferences. There is only the soft work of meeting light somewhere along the way. Whatever hour you tend toward, the day still holds a small, kind window for you. Researchers studying chronotypes and light agree on one soft thing. It is more important that some morning meeting happens than when exactly it does. A morning at 6, a morning at 9, a morning at 11. The body's inner clock is remarkably forgiving about timing. It cares less about the hour and more about the meeting itself. Whatever the morning of your life looks like, in whatever form it arrives, the body is willing to work with it. There is no missed schedule. There is only the morning that happened. Somehow, in your life today, tonight, every kind of morning that ever met you has already done its work. Perhaps the jaw can release, soft as a window, opening slowly inward. One of the persistent quiet thoughts before sleep is the idea of being behind on sleep, behind on schedule, behind on the day's work. Researchers studying sleep tend to offer a softer view. There is no schedule the body is meant to be on. There is no perfect tally that has fallen short. Tonight is simply the next available night. It is here. It is willing. Whatever has been kept from previous nights does not get added to a list. The night does not work that way. It only opens. Tonight is enough. By itself, there is no other night you have to make up for. The body has a long, quiet patience for nights that did not go well. The lost hours of older weeks, the interrupted stretches of harder seasons, the scattered nights that followed larger events in a life. The body does not file complaints about these. It does not bring them up later. It simply opens itself again to the next night that arrives and prepares itself as best it can for what rest may come, whatever you carried into this night from older ones. The body is not asking you to hand it over. Tonight, the older nights are allowed to settle like sand at the bottom of a quiet pond. Across the long history of the body, the average morning has not been a long, open meadow with full sun. It has been, in many places, brief and unremarkable. A few minutes of light near a doorway, a small, bright window, a glance at the sky while carrying water from one place to another. The body has lived, mostly, on small mornings. It has built its rhythms out of them. Whatever amount of light reached you today, it is, in some real sense, exactly the kind of morning the body has been working with for thousands of years. Tonight, no morning has to have been bigger than it was. Each one was, very softly, enough. Whatever light met you today, whatever amount, in whatever form, at whatever hour has already been read by the body, added to the ledger, and turned, very slowly, into the fabric of this hour. The morning has done its quiet work. Even if the morning was small, even if it was mist, even if it was grey, even if it slipped past while you were busy with something else, the body has been gentle with whatever it received. It has used all of it. Nothing has been wasted. Tonight is the proof. So tonight, the day's brightness can be set down. Entirely. Its work has all been done. When researchers describe the slow approach of sleep, they often note something a little surprising. Sleep does not begin with closing the eyes. It begins long before, in the body's slow temperature drop, in the rise of certain hormones, in the softening of attention through a long evening. By the time the eyes finally close, sleep has been preparing itself for hours, perhaps for the entire second half of the day. Closing the eyes is simply the last small gesture, a kind of polite knock at a door that has been opening very gently all afternoon. Tonight, sleep has been on its way for a long time. The last small gesture is the only one left. Researchers describing the moment of falling asleep have a hard time naming exactly when it happens. There is no sharp line. There is no internal click. There is, more accurately, a slow withdrawal, the way the tide leaves a beach over the course of an hour. Each small wave is a little quieter than the last. Each small thought a little less sharp than the one before. By the time the body is fully asleep, the beach is dry. No one can say which wave was the last one. Only that the water has quietly gone. Tonight, you do not have to know which wave is the last. The tide will take care of leaving on its own. One of the kindest reframings researchers offer is that sleep is not something a person does. It is something a person allows. The body does the work, the slowing, the cooling, the loosening. The mind only has to step a little to one side and let the body finish what it has been doing all along. There is no technique. There is no required posture. There is only the small, quiet act of getting out of the body's way. Tonight, the body knows what it is doing, and the mind can rest from trying to help. So tonight, you are allowed to do nothing at all. The sleeping is being done for you. Whenever you're ready, let the shoulders sink down a little further, soft as petals folding into themselves. On the nights when sleep seems most distant, researchers note that something a little ironic is often happening. The mind that resists sleep is, in many cases, very tired, only tired in a sharper, busier way. The day's small problems are running their last laps. The unfinished conversations are still playing out. The body, meanwhile, is patient. It does not mind the mind's late activity. It only waits, quietly, for the mind to run out of fuel. And eventually, on most nights, it always does. Tonight, even a sharp mind is allowed to slow. The body has been waiting all along. One of the comforting things to know about sleep is that it does not depend on whether the mind is fully quiet. The body's slow rhythms, temperature, heart rate, the rising and falling of certain hormones continue regardless of whether the mind is busy. They keep their schedule even when the inner room is still chattering. By the time thoughts settle, the body has already done most of the work of carrying you toward rest. None of your thinking tonight has to lead to sleep. The sleep has been leading itself. Tonight, your thoughts can chatter or quiet either way. The slow rhythms continue beneath them. The phrase falling asleep is a small misnomer. Nothing is dropped. Nothing is lost. Sleep is more accurately a drifting, a slow, sideways movement of attention away from the rooms of the day and into the quieter rooms of the night. There is no edge to fall over. There is no failure available. No real way to do this wrong. The body has done this every night of its life, with no instructions and no maps. It will do it again tonight, very simply, with a kindness it has had all along. Tonight, you do not have to fall. You only have to let the drifting happen. the way it has always been able to. Tonight is not the first time you have done this. It is not the second. It is not the 100th. The body has returned to rest more times than anyone could count. And it remembers the way home in the same instinctive way a small animal remembers a familiar burrow. There is nothing about this hour that is unfamiliar to the body. Every breath, every soft release of weight, every quiet retreat of the day's noise, all of these are, to the body, deeply known. Tonight is one of the long, ordinary returns. So tonight, the body is going somewhere. It knows. You are allowed simply to be carried. If sleep is the result of a long day's work, then tonight did not begin a few minutes ago. It did not begin at dinner. It did not begin when the lights were turned down. It began very softly, at the first edge of light at dawn, the first tint of the sky, the first slow blue of the world. From that moment on, the body was preparing for this hour. The ledger was being kept. The inner clock was being set. The night was being shaped. Slowly, by every minute that followed. Tonight, that long preparation has done its work. You are inside what it built. Whatever this morning looked like, a familiar window, a bright kitchen, a glance at the sky on the way to somewhere else. It is, quietly, still inside this hour. The body has not let it go. The light that met the eyes earlier today is part of the body's reason for being able to rest now. Morning and night are not separate rooms. They are different ends of the same slow corridor. The morning you barely remember has held the door open for the night you are entering. All along, tonight, a hand of warm morning is, in some way, still resting on this hour. Perhaps the chest can soften further. Breath like the slow breathing of a sunlit garden. If a night could be looked at the way a building is looked at, the light of the day would be its architect. The slow beams holding up the structure of rest are not made of effort or rules or evening rituals. They are made of brightness gathered, hour by hour. Throughout an ordinary day, the night does not build itself. It is built slowly, by a long collaboration between body and light. Tonight is one of those quiet buildings, finished and standing, waiting for you to step inside. Tonight, the architecture is already in place. Nothing else needs to be built. No matter what kind of day this was, long or short, easy or full, bright or grey, kind or hard, the night was always going to be willing to receive it. The night does not have preferences about days. It does not require you to have lived a particular kind of one. It only opens, on schedule, ready to take whatever you bring, whatever shape today had. The night is already wide enough for it. Whatever weight you are carrying, the night has more than enough room. Tonight, every shape this day took is welcome. Nothing has to be left at the door. In the end, that is, perhaps, the simplest thing to say about morning light and sleep. Tonight is the slow returning of a long, kind day. The light that touched the eyes in the morning is the same light that, in some quiet way, to prepare the rest, you are now allowed to enter. The body has been doing this all along, from the first dawn it ever met. It will go on doing it, every day, every night, until it is no longer needed. None of this requires understanding. None of this requires anything at all from you. The day has folded itself and night has come. If the eyes grow heavy, that is the morning, returning to you. Finally, azrist. So whenever you're ready, let the whole body soften at once from the crown of the head to the tips of the toes like a meadow, finally letting go of the day. Tonight may have started long before you noticed it. A quiet morning, a patch of light on a wall, a doorway that held the sky for half a minute, a few unremarkable seconds of brightness somewhere along the way. None of those moments asked to be remembered. They did their quiet work anyway. The body has gathered them, slowly, into the shape of this feeling. The slow heaviness of the eyelids, the soft loosening of the shoulders, the small quiet that has settled. Finally, inside the chest, nothing more is required of you tonight. The morning has already done its part. The day has already folded itself away. The body has already begun the slow return. It knows so well. If the eyes grow heavy, that is the morning, returning to you. Finally, azrist. Sleep gently,